Today we have the pleasure of meeting with Jeff Edmundson. He's a Senior District Manager of Immunology and Patient Outreach at AbbVie. AbbVie, did I say that correct?
AbbVie, yeah, AbbVie.
So
formerly known as Abbott. A lot of people don't recognize the name Abbott, and we were a spinoff of the pharmaceutical side of Abbott into our own company.
Okay, so talking about the pharmaceutical company, AbbVie produces the pharmaceuticals?
Everything from soup to nuts. It comes from the creation. We spend we're one of the biggest developers of new medicines to everything that you see commercials today for 3 of the biggest selling products on the market. We're focused in about 5 or 6 different therapeutic areas. We're now called a biopharmaceutical company because we get into monoclonal antibodies, and a lot of our research is well beyond just regular pharmaceuticals, dealing with the natural body's defense mechanisms and how you use those to turn on and turn off switches in the body to create or de-escalate or escalate a response, so to speak. So
and so you've been there now for 8 years, I believe. Is that correct?
It'll actually be 19 years in about 9 days. Yeah, I've been here as long as I've ever been with any one company. Yeah, that's why I say the Abbott and AbbVie were the same company, and so a lot of people don't realize when Abbott decided to go a certain direction and focus more on the nutrition side, which Abbott is known for their baby formula. They're known for their diabetic product line, Pedialyte, those kind of things. Yeah. And they have a whole line of eye care stuff. So they've gone kind of in a totally different direction, where the pharmaceuticals broke into its own individual company, which was 8 years ago. So.
Okay. Yeah. So with that branch off 8 years ago, you've had 4 different now jobs with AbbVie. You want to talk about how those jobs, what they are, and kind of the progression to get to where you are as a senior district manager?
Yeah. So I mean, for most people, when it comes to the pharmaceutical industry, we all start at the same place, carrying a bag, going into doctors' offices, making sales calls, representing different products, trying to give the doctor reasons why they might use it, what that might look like from a patient standpoint, and really helping them understand our products' roles in the lives of their patients. For a lot of doctors, as you know, they work nonstop. They're some of the hardest working people out there, and the research and the information that continues to come out from drug development, which is in a way how we live our lives, right? We want drugs to help us manage diabetes, high blood pressure, you name it. Those have to come from somewhere, and so the rep's job is to get out there and help the doctor understand the differences, the nuanced differences between certain products, and what are the features and benefits of those products for them, so that they can make the best educated decision for their patients. Bottom line. So I did that from about 2002, 2001 through 2008. I've always had an interest in getting into leadership and management and going through those ranks. And so I left the bag at about 2008 to go to the home office in Chicago, and did about a 3.5-year stint as an in-house sales trainer, as well as a few other positions where I was tasked to marketing or content development within our training department, different things like that. But once I finished that role, that's a developmental role. So your whole goal in that role is to build a network of people who want you to come and work for them on their teams and lead salespeople at that point. So I made that jump then in about 2011-ish to become a specialty district manager. I had actually been helping run districts in Alabama for about 6 months, and an opportunity came open for me to jump in to have my own team officially and stuff. And so I made that jump. And from there, I've been in a manager's position ever since. Now, this last 5 years has been a little bit different because I'm actually managing nurses and not sales reps. I'm actually on a completely opposite side of the business, so to speak. In fact, I don't have anything to do with the sales side now. My team is really responsible for helping patients manage the challenges that go with when you deal with specialty pharmaceutical medications that are life-altering. Oftentimes they're a little more expensive. They have to come from special pharmacies, and they're usually lifestyle changes that go with them because they're lifetime drugs. And so helping the patients really navigate that process and helping my nurses do it really well is what I do day in and day out now. And I've been doing it for about 5 years.
Okay, nice. So let's look at kind of how you got into pharmaceutical sales. You went to University of Nebraska. and had a psychology and philosophy degree. Took a couple years and then went back to UNO and was a guidance counselor certification.
Yep.
So I'm guessing you were looking at sort of a career path as a potential maybe high school guidance counselor or a some sort of drug counselor on the side.
Yeah, well, my when you graduate with a psychology and philosophy degree, there's not a lot much you can do with those in the general public except go back to school. So my first job was working in a mental hospital, working with children who are wards of the state. I was working with 6 to 12-year-olds predominantly as a support staff and counselor. And that kind of, I really enjoyed it. It was neat helping these kids relearn and navigate how to come back into life. And we're talking about kids who had been through significant abuse. You name the type of abuse and they had been through it. So these aren't your run-of-the-mill kids, but one of the things that we were tasked to do was help them learn how to live life. How do you get them to really have the life skills needed to be successful and such? And so we were doing that, and counseling is a big part of it. And that's when I had my first exposure to counseling. And I thought, wow, I'm going to be working in this field. I might as well get an advanced degree and do it, full time. And so I started my degree. And what I didn't realize is behavioral sciences and especially working with children and the court system and everything else that goes with that can be really defeating. And by the time I was about ready to finish my degree, I was pretty burned out. We had gone from kids living in the group homes 18 months and having some sense of normalcy, getting reintegrated back to going to public school, going to the school that they were supposed to go to, and having somewhat of a normal life. We were down to having 30 days to fix them. And at that point, I was just, I was working nonstop because there's not a lot of money. So you work crazy hours. There was times I was working, back to back 24-hour shifts, you name it. And I just needed something different. And so just happened to wander into enterprise, so to speak. I really didn't have any plans at that point other than I needed to make a change. And enterprise is really what got me started thinking about life outside of kind of the human services realm.
Right. So then with your job in enterprise, you worked there for a while as a sales rep for rental cars and vehicles. Let's talk about how your transition as a salesperson and your why going into like the medical field of pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, so enterprise has a unique model with how they build their organization. So everybody starts, again, like in pharmaceuticals, almost everybody starts kind of carrying the bag. You start as the car person. That if you've ever gone into a rental car, they write the contracts, they clean the cars, they do everything to, get you into the car. And part of that job is sales, selling you into a bigger car or making sure you're covered with insurance and such. And I just found that I had a natural knack for not only interacting with people, but for sales from that standpoint. And I was on their manager trainee track. So as I got better at selling, the opportunities to become a manager within the organization was opened up. And that was really cool because I'd never studied business or how to run a business. And enterprise teaches you some really useful skills that go to being kind of a business major and how to run your branch. And you really learn all of that. And so I just discovered that I enjoy doing both and happened to rent a lot of cars to pharmaceutical reps. And through conversations and whatnot, when things kind of started to get to the point where I knew I wanted to make a change, and I'd always thought about being a doctor. I had actually interviewed and started the process to become a doctor or go to PA school when I was in high school and early college, and that route just didn't materialize. And so when I thought about pharmaceuticals, well, this would be a great way to combine sales and, in reality, counseling is an effective degree to use because it's about working with people. So I took those skills that I gained from that and decided to jump into pharmaceuticals. And I did that almost 10 years as a rep, carrying the bag, going from just regular primary care into specialty sales, and knew instantly that I wanted to get into more. And that led me then into the training and the management roles that have since been a driver in my life.
Right. Absolutely. Let's talk about what your daily or weekly routine looks like now, like working with your nurses. Pre-COVID, post-COVID, I know it's a little bit different dealing with both of them. Like you said, you're working from home today. So let's look at a daily general idea and then maybe a week basis.
Yeah. So working from home and working is really no different than what I do, which is great from what I do in the office. I do have an office I can go to, and I did spend a lot of time because I was lucky. The office is actually here in Kansas City. Most of my counterparts, we manage out of this office 8 different teams of nurses, and most of my managers fly in on a weekly or every other week basis to work here. It's just the flexibility that we have with the job. But the core of our job is really helping these nurses help their patients. It's a lot of time behind the computer. Obviously, now working from home, we do it 100%. I'm in Zoom meetings or Teams meetings all day long. I'm in coaching sessions. I'm in presentations. We're developing content to help the nurses continue to do what they do, which is take care of our patients, which we call the North Star. And so, day in and day out, my day is involved sitting behind a computer and talking to people, really, for the most part. Analyzing data, making sure that we're being effective with our patients, that we're doing the right things for them. When my nurses run into problems, because with anything technology-wise, there's always issues with technology. There's always, we have new people and they're learning it, and we're not scripted, so they have to know how to answer questions and what guardrails, because with pharmaceuticals, regardless of where you're at, there's a lot of guardrails that we have to follow to stay in line with not only company policies, but the FDA and the CDC and you name it. We're governed. We're a very highly regulated industry, so there's not a lot of wiggle room. And so my job is to make sure my team is fully within those guardrails and doing their best job possible to take care of the patient. And I kind of see myself as the person who eliminates the barriers and eliminates the obstacles that might prevent them from giving that patient what we call an exceptional experience.
Absolutely. So with that, dealing with your nurses, so like, would they just call up and say, hey, I got a question about XYZ, or how do they handle that procedure?
Yeah, so the job in and of itself for them can be is basically talking with patients all day. Patients are enrolled many different ways, but oftentimes they run into, especially newer ambassadors, we call them ambassadors, nurse ambassadors. Oftentimes, especially newer ones, and we'll run into insurance situations. If you want to talk about a side of the business that's constantly changing, well, insurance and how insurance companies manage pharmaceuticals is changing yearly, if not even more than that. And so, oftentimes they'll run into situations they've never heard of, or they'll run into a barrier where something didn't happen that was supposed to happen. So my job is to figure out what to do and help them navigate it, while at the same time empowering them. I don't need them coming to me for everything if I do a good job of teaching them how to navigate a process or figure out a way to handle a situation. Because there's always going to be stuff for me to do. We have big teams and we're always busy, but my goal is to have them be fully empowered to really make the right decisions for their patients and really own the process so that patient has the best experience possible.
Right. So with AbbVie, what are some of the benefits of working for that specific company versus other pharmaceutical type companies?
Yeah, well, we're now with the addition of Allergan coming over. We just purchased the Allergan about a year ago. They're the maker of Botox. That's usually something that stands out for people.
Okay.
But what's neat about this company and why I've stayed here is there's 2 things: culture and the opportunity. AbbVie in and of itself, culture-wise, and this has always been that way, going back to the Abbott days, of really putting the patient and what we do and what we develop for the patients at the forefront of everything we do. As I said, I work on a part of the company that really isn't a moneymaker. My job is to help my nurses take care of patients and make sure that they're having a positive experience and getting the relief that they need from whatever their serious diseases that we're helping them navigate and treat.
Right.
And so I get to daily hear patients' conversations with my nurses and hear patients. I was on one the other day where the patient was talking about how excited they were. They were going back to their home state of Texas for like the first time. They hadn't been there in 8 years because they were so covered in plaque when they left that people wouldn't recognize them. And they were going to put on a swimsuit for the very first time and get in a pool and swim with their family and friends. And to hear the joy in their voice and how excited they are to get back into what we think of a normal life, right? Going swimming. It's extremely powerful, but you don't realize how these different diseases can take their toll, in many different ways, and not only physically from the symptoms and signs of like a psoriasis, but the mental toll that it can take on them. And we're responsible for helping those patients really have the best experience possible and figure out what is their their journey and next steps and stuff. So there's an extremely rewarding part to it. And so, that's the opportunity I speak of. If I work for a company that I could have gone into marketing, I could have go into operations, I can go into higher levels of management. I'm here today working as a manager, managing nurses. It really is unlimited as far as what I want to do. It's up to me to kind of dream about what I want to do and what's next, and then build a plan with my boss and his boss and figure out, how do we make that happen? And that's what's fun. And that's why I've done so many different things with the company. Until the last 5 years, and there were other reasons why I stayed in this role for 5 years now. Up to then, I was switching roles about every 2 years because I enjoyed that newness, that having that different impact, that learning the different parts of the business, and how does that all help me do what I'm doing currently? Because everything that you touch will influence you, and you can take something from everything to make what you're doing better. And that's what AbbVie gives you. AbbVie again goes back to the culture. They want you to take what you're doing and say, how do you make this better? We're constantly being challenged to revolutionize what we're doing for the betterment of the company, for the betterment of our patients and everything. So it's pretty exciting.
That is culture, and having that ability to have your managers and bosses help you and help you develop that type of relationship is really important. That's pretty cool. What's something you wish you would have known? We kind of hinted at this a little bit, but what's something you wish you would have known in high school or maybe early college that would help you now with your job?
I probably, looking back now, wish I would have spent a little more time thinking about what my future might look like and be a little more strategic in what courses I took and planning for at least that initial opportunity of what I was going to try to do. I got to the point where I basically graduated with psychology and philosophy because that was the closest way to finishing with a degree. I had picked up so many classes, but again, when I got done, what do you do with those degrees? I just happened to have a connection that got me hooked up with the hospital, and things have worked out since, and I don't regret it. I've learned something from every job I've ever taken, but I see my son now making that college decision and what he wants to do, and I'm watching my daughter go through those same things, and they definitely had a better path, or at least a path to start with, whereas I don't really feel like I had that path. And I think I always knew I was going to college. I always knew that I was going to do something. I just wish I would have taken the time to really think and maybe explore whether it's do an intern, or if I'm interested in a certain area, get a job in that area, even just to talk to people and ask questions and stuff. I think going back, that would be the biggest thing I would change, because I would have probably had more success in college from the standpoint of being a little more laser focused on where I was going to go with that. Right. Then basically letting luck take over. Some of it was luck. Obviously, skill also has a part to play. I'm not going to diminish that I am not driven and I didn't, push myself to always succeed. But I would have loved to have seen what would have happened if I would have had a better idea of what I wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Just having that general path to look down and kind of see. Mm-hmm. So with that, what is something that you would, for a high school, college student, what's a book that you would recommend somebody read? Not necessarily maybe dealing with sales, or maybe dealing with medicine or counseling, but something that kind of helps with like a career path, or maybe towards just general education.
Yeah, some books. There's been a couple books that have been really influential for me. Mindset by Dwork is a huge one, and that's it. What I find, especially in this day and age, and it doesn't matter whether you're a millennial, Generation X, a baby boomer, whatnot, people either have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And the sooner you learn that a growth mindset is going to take you farther, and what does that mean? The better off you're going to be in having an open mind to the possibilities that are in front of you and seeing all that might be open to you. So that book has been that came from my counseling background, and one I've really followed a long time. From a business standpoint, Simon Sinek is somebody that I like to follow a lot, and he has a concept called start with the why. Yep. And I think you can't get away. I don't care if you're doing sales or not sales. Whenever I go to present, there's always a story. I always am trying to create a story behind why we're doing what we're doing. And that story, the key part of it is the why. And when people really get the why, you are going to have that internal gratitude and buy-in, that internal motivation that you need to go further. And so everything that I do now is so centered around what's the why, How do I communicate that? What is the story? And if that story doesn't have a good why, more than likely it's going to be a challenge to get people on board with whatever we're trying to get done or accomplish.
Absolutely. And that kind of goes into one of my last questions, but I have some more also. If you had a self-statement as to what your why is, kind of give me a paragraph, a sentence as to, what's your why behind what you do and how you live your daily life.
Yeah, I'm actually I've got two different computers here, and I'm like, where's my keyboard? I was going to pull up my email. I'm going to see if I can do that, because that's an easy way to do it. There's a quote that I have in there that is very powerful for me.
Absolutely.
Bear with me for just a second, because I've got 3 computers going right now, and I got to get to the right one.
Hey, that's how you get your work done.
All right. So this is a very short quote, but it is always, and of all people, it's from Chelsea Handler. I don't know if anybody's familiar with who Chelsea Handler is, but this has been my mantra really for a long time now. It's my mantra as a leader, and it's kind of how I try to really live my life by now in being a people leader. It's help other people to shine, because it makes us all shine brighter.
Okay. Yeah, I absolutely love that.
And that stuck with me a long time ago, and I'll be honest with you, I had to learn it the hard way. When I worked for Enterprise, when I first got into sales, you think of your typical sales, cutthroat, me, I'm going to be the best, and I am very much a competitive person, so it fit right in there. And it took a long time for me to realize that if I was going to be successful, I was going to be more successful if I worked through others and with others and helped others achieve their goals, and by doing so, I'll achieve my goals. And I can tell you, ever since I've made that mind shift, it's come true. Everything that I do now is because of how I do and how I approach things. And it is all about the other person and what I can do for them. And it's amazing how that opens doors and stuff. And so I put it on my email as a reminder that if I keep that as my North Star in everything that I do, then I'm going to be pretty darn successful. And that leads me to another thing that actually, I just learned this one. So this is always growing. So that's one thing you'll learn with me is I challenge myself to always be growing. And I just bought the book, even The Happiness Equation.
Okay.
So we're used to the idea of big success, leads to great work. And if you do great work, you're going to be happy. And the happiness equation flips that around and it says, you got to be happy first. If you're happy and happy with what you're doing, you're going to do great work. And if you're doing great work, you know what? You're going to have big success. So I'm building a PowerPoint out right now that has that as the centerstone of what I'm developing from a presentation standpoint. And I use it every day. I start my day now with about 15 minutes of self-reflection. I have a journal that I write, and I capture my thoughts, but I always have that slide up just for that standpoint of reminding me of where my priorities are, so that everything that I do, I'm doing for the right reasons and with the right motives.
Right. So you kind of mentioned that journal with a product that kind of helps you with it may be your journal, it may be, a specific program or development, something on the computer, but what's a product that you use on a daily basis that really helps organize or structure, or like for a nurse, it could be a specific type of stethoscope or something like that. But what's something that you use on a daily basis that really helps your work life?
Well, for me, it's a calendar, but I have 3 of them going. But that's the nature of being a people leader. You have to. But I would venture to say that for me, this journal has been one of the things that I probably have developed the biggest habit around. And as I said, I'm about halfway through this one, and I write in it all day. I actually keep it open on my desk, and I write in it all day as I go through to capture my thoughts and stuff. And I think the more I've gotten into self-reflection and really taking time to really understand when you're successful, why you're successful, when you have failures. And as I'm a big believer, you never get good until you have a failure. You're never going to be successful unless you've experienced failure. I really try to take that into consideration. I think about what are my daily successes. I think about what are things I would have done over. And then I take that time to reflect and write about them, write about my thoughts connected to them. And I can tell you doing that has done more to bring happiness to me and more peace to everything that I do in a very stressful, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm in business, I'm in sales, I mean, in a way. So it's a stressful environment at times. And I have found that not only does this help me in my work life, but it helps me in my personal life. And I would argue that people who really get into this and take it seriously and do it, you'll be amazed at how it'll transform your life. And I was a skeptic. Trust me, they've been trying to get me to do this for like 5 years. It took 4 to get me to do it. And now that I can't think of not doing it. And it's just amazing how it's just transformed how I operate and how I feel like I treat myself, how I treat my family, but even how I treat others in general.
Right. Absolutely. So with some of that stress relief, being able to find coping mechanisms for a different type of stress, general healthcare professionals think of stress, or stuff that they've seen, PTS related, traumatic incidents or surgeries or whatever that is that they see on their daily basis. What are some stress reliefs that you personally like to use other than your journal?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Well, 2 things. First of all, I'm an avid triathlete, so my working out gives me that quiet time that I need to really process and do things. I'm an extreme extrovert. People will laugh because anybody who knows me very well knows that I can talk to a wall and have a great conversation. That's just who I am. So for me, I don't often give myself that time for that quietness to really process and think through. So for me, that is my training schedule and my time to do that. And sometimes it's just down TV time, just watch something and run, just to have that respite. The other big piece for me as far as stress relief is you have to have somebody that you extremely trust well, that is there to just listen, not try to respond, but will just listen. And if you have that in your life, you are set. And that for me is my wife. I have several close friends who probably come just as close, and I know where those outlets are, and I take advantage of them every day because I'd just go nuts, and I'd probably be a lot angrier person in general, my kids would say, if I didn't have that. So I learned to talk it. So that kind of goes back to the mental health side of things that some of the skills that I learned being a counselor and going through my master's program and stuff is I'm a firm believer in you've got to have somebody, and even better yet, have that person that you can talk about business, who gets what you're talking about, but have that person that you can talk about business who has no idea that, what you're talking about, but they will listen. And that's what you need. And so those are the 2 things for me that really carry me the farthest when it comes to managing my stress.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, being a PE teacher, I have felt that myself, and a triathlete, being able to just get your body flowing, get the blood moving, get your thoughts out, and you're, swimming for an hour and a half by yourself. There's a lot of a time to think through your processes and think through your thoughts of what you're doing throughout the day. So professional development wise for AbbVie, what do they have you guys do? Maybe the certifications or classes or other types of things for professional development for your current position?
Yeah, no, as a people leader within AbbVie, we have a whole department dedicated to creating curriculum and creating opportunities for development and growth as a people leader. It's been a little bit different this last year with COVID because a lot of times they're tied to our bigger meetings or our managers meetings and stuff like that. We usually have at least one day during a 3 or 4 day meeting where 100% of that day is devoted to our own growth and development in some way, shape, or form. So we're constantly going and learning how to coach better, learning, how to give better feedback. We're empowered to create our own, like if I have an area of interest, I'm working on this Be Awesome deck. It's part of that development of creating something that I think will help my fellow managers, be a better leader and such. And so it's nonstop really here. And that's one thing that, like as I said, we have a lot of nurses who work for us. And if you're a nurse, they're not used to this environment. So when they come over here and go, we actually are getting a day to get better at our job, and we don't have to talk to patients. Are you sure that's right? I'm like, yes, we're sure. So it's at all levels. It's just not me as a manager that has constant development, but my manager above me and my people below me that everyone, it's highly encouraged. And our focus when we develop our growth plans for the year, we're focused on what are we going to be focusing on? What are one or two things that we're going to get better at that's going to make a difference within the organization or for our team? And we're held accountable to it, because that's the other piece is you got to have some accountability to it too. So that's probably another reason that continues to stand out why AbbVie for me.
Right. 2 questions left.
Okay.
One is, these are just kind of fun. What is your favorite medical TV show?
Oh gosh, any more? I used to watch them religiously. I'm not gonna lie, whether it was ER, probably if I wanted to really get truthful, I really enjoyed ER back in the day.
Okay.
Now, Grey's Anatomy is still on at my house. I just know that because if I walk through the room, I can see them watching it. For me, though, if it's a medical one, some of it's, I could say MASH. I do enjoy, for me, I do enjoy military shows and stuff like that. So any of the shows that have a hyper focus where there are medics involved and that kind of stuff, I do get really involved with that part of it. But it comes from my family and I have a brother and dad who served and several uncles and stuff. So for me, that's been huge, and it's one of the things that I wish I would have taken the time to do. And if I would have, it would have probably more than likely been more of that medical side. Yep. But so anymore, I don't have time to watch TV. That's the hardest part. And if I do, I'm watching something like Marvels or, what's Winter Soldier and the Falcon or whatever it's called. Yeah. I know that's out right now.
The last question for you too is, if you don't like blank, then being a medical sales rep is not for you.
People. I mean, it's a people job. You're getting paid to interact and influence, obviously, and if you're afraid to create a conversation and build a relationship and be of service, it makes it really hard to do.
Right. Well, that's awesome. Thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm going to share this with our students and for any other students that are interested in getting into the medical sales field. If you have any questions about this, please let me know, and we will continue this conversation.